authoritarian regimes don't just collapse, and neither do democratic regimes for that matter. Something has to kind of push them, right? And so there has to be an alignment of internal and external forces that is able to bring sufficient force to collapse the regime. And that means two things, kind of breaking the cohesion of the regime's elites so that they fight against one another or even join the other side to fight the regime, and the loss of control and the loss of cohesion of the security forces. As long as that math doesn't add up, a regime can stay in power theoretically indefinitely. The Bashar al-Assad regime stayed in power almost 15 years right after the Syrian civil war broke out because there wasn't a similar alignment of forces that was able to kind of break it. I think actually going back to the earlier discussion about the uprising, I think part of the theory of both the opposition as well as to some extent the Israelis and the US was that there was kind of going to be a sequence of events, which was popular uprising, military intervention, and that military intervention would be so shocking and so strong that it would then break the cohesion of elites and or their control of security forces, right? So it was a sequence of events. The first two parts of that formula happened. The third part didn't happen for various reasons. But I remember going back to the summer of 2025, during the 12-day war, I remember having some conversations in Tehran, hearing from people who were quite senior within the system, basically thinking that actually the only way for the country to be saved, if not the regime, was for its regime change to happen, right? So that doubt was there, but that sequence didn't really play out. And it goes to that gap that existed between when the popular uprising happened and when the intervention happened, potentially. We can only hypothesize. The kind of second point I lay out, or I would kind of say in response, is that you're absolutely correct, that again, the regime can kind of stay in point indefinitely. But remember, Iran is a country that's experienced the Iran-Iraq War in the 80s. It's been under sanctions for the better part of almost 50 years, approaching 50 years. It's been under sanctions for nearly the kind of post 9/11, more comprehensivized and financialized sanctions for almost 20 years. I did a working paper with colleagues at MIT, which estimating the counterfactual kind of economic damage of the sanctions regime from 2010 to 2020, it was estimated at being the macroeconomically equivalent to the Iran-Iraq War. So Iran experienced basically the macroeconomic damage of an 8-year war without actually having experienced that war. And we've been seeing for at least since the 2020s the signs of state failure, whether that's around water, whether that's around electricity, whether that's around, before the popular uprising, we were seeing more and more members of the security forces posting videos saying, with my wage, I can't feed my family, and basically cursing the leadership, right? So you're right that they can stay in power. At the same time, the state and the regime are degrading along that trajectory. And the question then becomes, does that alignment of forces, internal opposition and external force, at some point emerge, which is able to defeat a weakened regime? And actually, by the time you reach that point, maybe that's 10, 20 years down the line, is the state strong enough to maintain its cohesion, right?